are quite a few weapons in Oblivion that classify as bad, such as a dirty hoe, rusty weapons, a fork, and many others. In my deep dive through the wiki, along with a helpful YouTube comment from a fellow challenge runner, I believe I have stumbled upon the single worst weapon in Oblivion that is not craftable. The Truncheon of Submission. It is a weapon that does massive fatigue damage, but has the slight drawback of healing the target more than you can deal. It is obviously a joke weapon in all sense of the word, so to appease my masochistic tendencies, today I will attempt to beat Oblivion Remastered in a consensual way with the Truncheon of Submission. The rules will be very straightforward. The only weapon I can use is a Truncheon and that is it. While sure I could just deplete its minimal enchantment and use the weapon as normal, I'll have to keep recharging the weapon. And that is about it. Usual no companions for the run, and I will allow major glitches just so I can meet rule number 2's requirement. Not much else to say. Obviously, I am not going to have a pleasant time. So how many belts will it take until the game takes pity on me on this not quite Valentine's Day evening? Let's find out. Starting up in my prison cell, I am playing as a Dragontail Redguard today. They start off with a high endurance stat for a much longer night of foreplay. There is another reason why I chose the Redguard, more will be later. Also today, I played as a female for the first time in Oblivion Run, and yeah, once again Oblivion lets you play around with the sliders until the sleep paralysis demons are shitting their pants and hiding under the bed. I am starting to think the Botox injections into the lips is starting to go a little too far. Might be a hunch. Once the Karen is ready to speak to the manager, I give a very fitting full name and be hit on by the loser in the other cell. I might have low standards, but he is way beneath me. I have an ominous premonition about the fate of the Emperor, and begin the escape out of the not-so-lovely dungeon. Since I can't partake in Bloodsport, I just spectate from the stands, making sure I am in the splash zone. Once I am left alone, I am free to begin breaking out of the joint. So I do the only logical thing, and stare at a lock for like 5 minutes until I hit lockpicking level 50. I really cannot be buggered to do lockpicking in this game, okay? Much of the rest of the introduction goes how it normally goes. Run through a moist dark cavern, avoiding the neckbeards, letting them remain lonely on this Valentine's Day, and I push down some logs onto the poor goblins below. I might have forgot to mention timber. Oh well, before long I'm back with my escort, and I picked my class. As much as I would love to choose between the lover and the lady given my roleplay today, I chose the obvious Lord. I think the Lord abandoned me a long time ago, but I will take the added defense boost. The rest of the tutorial plays how it typically does, but you have no help to the situation, as the livelihood of the ruler of Tamriel is endangered, and of course, the one moment I take my eyes off the children, he goes and shoves some scissors into his own neck. Maybe that is why no one lets me babysit their kids, and not the fact I hang out at bars all day. As for my class, I just pick out my normal skills of Armorer, Blunt, and some minor skills to help progressing things along. I get my keys to my freedom, and I emerge out of the sewers without a shower, ready to raid grocery stores. Honestly, I have been around other customers who smell 100 times worse, and I think the cashiers have cans of air fresheners dedicated just to them. Instead of going to the Imperial City like a normal person, I am in fact not normal. My parents call me special, though looking back, I think they might have mean it in the alternative class at a lower difficulty sort of way. So I dive through the nearby Iliad ruins. I don't even have my weapon of the day, and here I am progressing through my obligatory dungeon escapades. I have honestly been through enough Oblivion dungeons to last me a while, and that is with a weapon. This dungeon has a lot of Welkin stones to get me through much of the early game, and there is a button puzzle near the end of it, which I couldn't be buggered to solve, so I used my massive cranium to inspect the fortification of the door in the hinge, and burst it out of the frame. Fortification means a simple connection and not sexual, right? I rushed my way to the end of the dungeon and grabbed the Varla stone, which is the main reason I came here for. Well, also running face first into the blade trap, but I'm not very attentive, as it is pretty obvious. I grab a statue I can't do anything with, but sell it, ignore the necrophiliac at the end of the dungeon, anything to get him off I guess, though I think the police has something to say about that, and I emerged on the outside, ready to run away from my problems, that being bandits, and into the loving embrace of the big city, filled with bright lights and places you shouldn't bring children to. Back alleys. What do you think I was going to say? Now I am ready to begin grabbing the pleasure tool of the day, so I travel to Anvil and oofda. That is a little outside my price range. So that means I will need to make some money, but I don't want to do things in a not safe for work sort of way. I do not want my feet online for degenerates to drool over. My OnlyFans page only posts fans. Take a look at that drum and that 4,000 CFM. Oh yeah. Instead, I just duplicated a shitload of Varla stones, both to make a lot of money and to get me through the run for enchantments. I also take my winnings in the Cheater's Lottery to the various stores around the Imperial City to get a massive upgrade of my enchanted gear. I return to Anvil to purchase my tool for a wonderful evening, for me anyways, and now I am ready to begin something. I return to the Imperial City and start looking to do some side questing. I have a weapon that really can't kill people, so there goes 90% of the game focused around killing people. And this isn't New Vegas where you can clear most of the quests without lifting a weapon, so my options are limited, but I feel like doing things in a weird way. My first task is investigating Thornir about how he got his items for cheap. It is starting to run the local businesses out of town. Nothing like the Walmart way of price fixing, getting items super cheap from sweatshops, buying their products in mass, and ruining the local economy. I followed him in the middle of the night to a meeting, where they are very discreet on their secret meeting. I started tailing the Canadian until he went home. I waited until he went out and stole his book. Turns out he is robbing graves and we need to stop him. Somehow. I attempted to raid the grave and stop him, but every hit of my weapon ends up healing the Nord and his compatriot. Since this tomb is locked, I have no escape, so it is a non-stop bludgeon fest until one of us finishes. Probably me, since I'm the only one with mortality, so time to incorporate plan B. I give a guard a love tap, and he follows me into the tomb, where he does his job and subjugates the robbers. For once, the legal system does its job. The robbers lie dead on the ground, I'd be arrested for just being an absolute pain in the ass, which I do for most of my runs because being evil is fun, and now the Store Owners Association can continue to extort the locals and impose really stupid rules. Apparently in this association, having kinky dungeons below the shop is against the rules. Rude. Now where am I going to torture vigilance now? Some minor funny story. I was originally going to have a sponsored segment here, but the people dipped out. I don't know if it was my low sub count, I want to create a freedom with how I incorporate the segments into the videos, or the fact I am in the gaming genre when they obviously didn't look at my channel, or that I'm actually psychopathic and a liability with sponsorships, much like Reggie, or that the video is making fun of topics such as bondage, discipline, sadism, and masochism. Who knows? Also, the sponsor was for some blackout blinds. The next quest I wanted to do was investigating a corrupt captain of the guard. Not Lex because Lex is absolutely based, but Audens. However, much like my luck, actually starting the quest is a f***ing pain in the ass because you need the rumor or know who to investigate. I couldn't get either to work. I ended up spending close to 15 minutes following around the city talking to every urchin, storekeep, pompous aristocrat that is considered poor by modern standards, and lonely suitors, but I couldn't find anyone. After following around for so long, I said, F it, I will quest elsewhere. Since I am roleplaying as a molesty sycophant, I figure I could do the quest that involves ladies pursuing the bars for any seamen. See? Men. As in sailors, you perverted sickos. I learned about the plot from the wife of a cheater, and their marriage is on the rocks. Have they tried jacuzzis? I traveled to the pub, and I was invited to join a gang. Finally! Someone who understands my moral destitution. When I tried to join the gang as sirens to lure the horny individuals to a cabin in the middle of nowhere, to strap them to a bed and steal all their valuables, which is a very common search term on the websites that will get you fired from any workplace, but the game would not let me join. Fooled again by another RPG that focuses on characters being lawfully good and not evil. I tried fighting my way out and luring the sirens to the guards, but much like Odysseus, I am strapped to a mast, unable to fight back against his urges. I couldn't escape my hell, and I had to reload, so I'd have to rethink my stratagem. So given how my brain is so unwired, psychologists drink themselves under trying to figure out this madness, I do the first logical thing in my mind. Dive face first into hell. I think I got the story of Odysseus and Orpheus backwards. From the wise words of the poet Homer, Dope! Given my weapon restrictions, I really cannot fight back against the forces of evil, so I just ignored everything here, even the backup at the start, which I don't need for my strategy, and booked it across the barren hellscape and into the massive shaft that is I think YouTube is going to ban me for how Argonian made this video is becoming. Looming in the sky. I ignored everything going up the tower and proceeded into the torture chamber. I interrupted a BDSP session of torment, and I figure I could join. We need a save word for this. How about subscribe? Subscribe? Since the only way I can remove enemies from my HUD is gravity, I just lured unfortunate souls to a ledge and let the ragdoll engine take its course. Honestly, it is a very funny way to dispatch enemies. I could only do this for so long because the corridor simulator, and I ignored everything else up my ascent. I pulled out the orb and closed the gate to hell, and I'm not talking about my ex, and now comes the siege of the city. I just look on in awe as my backup does all the hard work. At least I play cleric in the Halloween nurse outfit, healing the soldiers should they get hurt. When I got to the church, I totally forgot about handing over my necklace to Joffrey, so I traveled to the priory I should really tell my confessions to. I am sorry, Father, for I have sinned. I tried playing Skyrim, and I just beat Nazim in the streets, in front of everyone, sending his carcass to the Cloud District, and I enjoyed it greatly. And handed in the necklace. I returned to Kvatch and told some random priest he needs to go to a different church in another country for missionary work, just colonization in the modern era, and when I got there, some fellow sinners were having a vigilant ascendar moment. However, the vigilants haven't been founded yet, so they just look like assholes. I accidentally gave a priest a love tap that will haunt me later on, and before I travel to Cloud Ruler, I do the only most moral and saintly thing I can do. Lead 2 priests to a cabin to have a pleasurable evening. A sum of 3 times 2, but the door is not allowed to do math, so my entire plan backfires. Never mind. I decided to say hell with it, and just progress along the main story. I continue my streak of being an absolute sadist by pushing a horse off the mountain to see if the game will panic, which it kinda does, but I think PETA injected itself into the game. Then I signed myself up for a Tinder account. I think I set my profile up wrong. When I traveled to Bruma, I tried getting rumors from a guard, but I ended up getting a taste of irony as I'm fined. Jeez. I wandered around for a while until I got the word of a lovely bandit couple having relationship problems. I talked to Honora, whose boyfriend is locked up and knows the location of some treasure. I tried conversing with the Nord, but he isn't having any of it. To proceed, I needed to get locked up, so I just had a lovely police brutality session with a jailer. Deep down, he enjoyed it. I also discovered at this point, if you interact with someone knocked down, you can steal their stuff. Good to know. I get locked up, and I get the trust of Jorundir, who wants me to off Arnora. I sleep my fine off, and when I emerge out in the sunshine, I get arrested again. Bloody prudes. I return to Arnora, who dies in this quest no matter what outcome you take, so I provoke her into a fight. She chases me through the streets, which I knock her down and steal some stuff. Seems the guards in this town are only there because the rich parents feel sorry for their son and lets him hang out with the celebrities and does the easiest tasks. At least the backup cleans up the work. With both amulets in hand, I hand them in to the Nord, who gives me the location to some treasure. I try taking my new knowledge of stealing to the cabin, which the only thing I get from this is a crash. Thanks, game. I figure I should probably complete the task at hand, and found the treasure of knowledge. I am illiterate, so these words mean nothing to me. Thank you, US education system. I return to the cabin of the Sirens, and even with my ability to knock down enemies, I have no key to escape. So I am stuck, and sadly, I will be unable to complete this quest. Why can't I deal things in my lustful way of violence? Having enough of the side questing, I figure I should probably get back to beating the game. I beat the Mythic Dawn agent into submission, and stole his reading material for good matter. The guards are after me. Again. So I had to walk across the city in front of every guard to the Mages Guild to continue the quest. While waiting for the store to open so I can buy out the entire smut collection, some Jehovah's Witness accosted me in the middle of the street in the middle of the night for me to join them. I know they are desperate for people to join them, but jeez. I persuaded an elf to part ways with that book since it is joining the ever rapidly expanding list of banned books at the schools, and instead he should take some linen and read the adventures of an Argonian maid while consuming some stroganoff. Next up comes the sewer dive, which all I can describe is very weird. I hit Boris a couple times so he can join me in running through the sewers, and I just sprinted my way through. Turns out I can at least kill rats, so that is nice. Everything else, not so much. Boris dipped from the fight, so I went to bring him back, only for an Imperial Watch to ambush me in the loading zone and arrest me. I feel this was a sting all along. I am taken once again to jail for horny-related crimes, and I had to follow Boris back into the sewers at a snail pace. And I'll just play out what happens.
"5 of the afternoon watch and all's well. No problems, ma'am." Bothil from the Arcane University is looking for someone to chase the bandits from Camp Hales. Probably trying to enhance her weird machine. Farewell, citizen.
Once again, Oblivion remains the pinnacle of jank, and back in the sewers, I resume the chase sequence. Something hilarious I found out. Crabs don't have any knockdown, so they just start to float on. In a tragic turn of events, crabs are now an airborne transmitted disease. And during the excursion, Boris started to backtrack to hit a mud crab. I think the sewer dive would have been much more palpable if I did things the intended way of actually using a viable weapon. I beat down Raven and stole his book, then helped Boris beat the backup by giving him some heals. At least I can somewhat play a clerical role. With things back to normal, I did my quest updates until I'm pointed in the general direction of the local orgy of evil. Sounds like my sort of thing. The hike up to the cave was pretty uneventful, thankfully, and as soon as I got into the club, I tried hitting on the doorkeep. I don't think he appreciated that. With the key in hand, I just ran through the stage of Belt Enthusiast and into the backstage where they're doing some very nasty stuff, like human sacrifice. Now I'll just let him be, and I just stole the Holy Scripture of Kirkbride and booked it out of there. I don't think they appreciated some local lunatic run in and try to beat up the manager. I just want someone to vent my frustrations towards. Back at Cloud Ruler, I hand in my library book, and next up comes dealing with some spies. I don't want them to know what I do in my dungeon and why I need 13 different whips to flog with. And that is in my interrogation chamber. You don't want to know what's in my other dungeon. I just brought them to the police and let America do American things. And the other American things. Honestly, I have no idea why I was arrested that time. I let a bandit get a redemption arc before letting my tendencies get out of hand. I raided the basement for information, and I handed it in to the authorities, so at least I can be somewhat good. Next up comes getting a Daedric artifact from somewhere. I have a weird rule, but I kinda want this challenge run to be a level 1 run, so I'm still level 1. Every single artifact is supposed to be obtained at some level greater than 2, but there is one exception. The game is suggesting me not to go through with this plan, but I'm the sort of person to bang my head against the wall until either I get head trauma or the wall gets busted down. Yeah, that's what I end up getting. I decide, why not? Let's go kill a super boss with a pacifist weapon at level 1. I think I take the subscribe for more masochism moniker a little too far. I hack my way to the southwest of the Imperial City, past the fort is something I have absolutely none left of, until I arrive at a dungeon dedicated to inhaling diesel engines. Welcome to Iowa. There's a lot of riffraff here, but that is what having traps is for. As for the bear, this bull couldn't steal anything and wouldn't let me pick something off her body, so melee it is. I tried hitting on her, but she rejects my advances, and just decides to murder me. Curse me and my neckbeard aura. Or maybe it's a psychopathic aura. Who knows? We run through the dungeon, activating the gas trap, which activates the gas trap glitch, where poison fills the entire dungeon, affecting everyone who wanders in. Umbra fell into the pit of despair, yet survives for a bit, before eventually succumbing to the poison. With victory in hand, I claim the sword and get an upgrade on my armor, and hand in the sword to the art of the deal, and I get a helmet I immediately hand in, then I can start yet another babysitting mission. I might not be a very good babysitter. Might be because I tend to leave my very questionable toys laying around, or might be because when I try to heal my allies, I end up knocking them into a spike pit, flinging them into the lava. Since I am level 1, my allies have not leveled up at all, so they go down pretty easily. I guess that is the downside of trying to game the level curve. The scamps have next to no stamina, one bonk and they are already exhausted. As for the tower, the first room didn't turn out so good. The soldier immediately died, so I had to repeatedly encourage Bird so he can beat the enemies. After the first room, things did ease up a little bit. Well, as much as going through a battle spire without the not safe for online companies wall art would get you. Once I made it to the upper echelons, I ignored everything and just pulled out the orb, wrapping up this session, and we showed dominance over the devils. Well, as much as losing 2/3 of our backup will get us. Before succumbing to absolute hell, I thought I could do some quick resupplying. I think this dungeon might be a little too intense for my liking. Just a feeling. So, about the reason I chose Redguard to start with. I was actually wanting to end the run right here with a glitch. There was a glitch where you could offset your camera, face the ground, scroll in the camera, and you could phase through some walls, and you could get into the endgame door. This is most easily done with the Dreadguard's Adrenaline Rush ability, which is done in some speedrunning routes. However, since I am on current patch, it seems they have patched this glitch out. I just wanted to avoid Sacred Tour and the decadence of depravity, but I guess time to rip off the bandage. Slowly, on a bunch of sensitive arm hair, heavily waxed. So, for those who watched my pacifist run, not many since YouTube was very off during that time, the worst part of the run was easily Sacred Tour. I am at this position once again. I could not do any damage to the undead blades, so the only way for me to beat the dungeon is to let the ghosts have an unconventional session of blasting ice balls up the bone butts. Yeah, this is absolutely miserable. But thankfully, in this polished sphere of a brain of mine, I have a brand new game plan that should hopefully help out those who wish to torture themselves with pacifist Sacred Tour. And the solution is thankfully pretty simple. Just lure the skeletons to the trap near the start of the dungeon and let the darts claim a victim. Probably should make a mental note for my pleasure dungeons, don't use poison for the traps. Between zones, if I don't want anything to follow me, I just go into sneak when going through the zone, then load the autosave. The second skeleton was able to go through the load zones with ease, and everyone was led to the dart trap. 2 down, 2 to go. The third skeleton proved to be a nuisance. The quirk with enemies following you in Oblivion Remastered is that only 2 enemies can follow you through a zone at a time, and the ghosts have a higher load priority than the skeletons in the prison section, so I have to manually lead every ghost from the prison back into the first zone 2 at a time. And by the time I could get the undead blade out of his comfort zone and trying out more forbidden techniques, every single enemy in the prison was already relocated. And when I lured the skeleton into the dart trap, the game did not appreciate everything I had to look up when writing the script to make the BDSM jokes and crashed out. Turns out the swinging toys aren't supposed to be battering rams with spikes at the end. I had to relocate a few ghosts to a different zone to clear out some of the resources, and eventually the darts could do their work and I am down to my last skeleton. Not wanting to crash the game again, I just do the tried and true technique of executing the blades by way of firing line. Oh, if only this was Delphine. It took a bit, but when you're used to bullet hell, this excursion wasn't too bad. Before long, the bones could go limp, my masochistic tendencies could be satiated for the time being, and I can grab the armor of Tiber Septum. And it only took about a quarter of my recording time. Now you know why I wanted to skip the rest of the game. Before I can begin the next quest line, I had to book it really far away from the dungeon, with every enemy in a 10-mile radius piling on my position. Should have put that hot singles in your area ad on that shady site. Meh. Next up comes good old Miss Karkand, where skeletons and goblins are enjoying a lovely evening with each other. A nice meal, a pleasant movie, riding through the town, and wrapping up the evening with 12 counts of attempted murder. Pleasant couple times. I have charged through this dungeon many times before, and after pulling out the glow-in-the-dark butt plug, I had to escape out of this dungeon. I hate lockpicking, and I struggled immensely trying to open the door. So I do the logical thing. Grind lockpicking to 75 so I can have a chance to escape. I have no patience for this minigame, and I would rather vibrate my spacebar furiously to grind a skill so I can skip the lower level nonsense. Eventually I break out of this jail cell, one of frankly too many this run, and to escape my pursuers, I just had to make a brisk jog to a reasonable location. Skingrad. Lovely. At least Adrenaline Rush is putting in the work. With my cowardice well done, I return my MacGuffins to the priest of fan service that all the ladies want, and now comes the Battle of Bruma. I tell the Countess everything is fine, I'm playing on Adept, not the wimpy difficulty of Master, or the Giga Chat difficulty of Novice. And eventually Martin can show up very late to his own battle after a late night bender, since if we fail, all Tamriel is doomed. No pressure. Also, seems the Conjurer wanted to help out in the defense of Bruma. Too bad his sacrifice was in vain. As for the battle, I spent my time topping off my allies just so they don't accidentally keel over. I ended up topping them off balance, and Joffrey was killed. I am not very good at my job. It was a quick battle all things considered, and eventually the Great Gate opened up wide, which I dive in face first. The dungeon to end all dungeons. Things didn't go too well at first, mostly because I don't have a lot of stamina, so often I don't have enough juice to jump. I am getting up there in age. I can only go 1 round, not 3 like I used to. I ignored the wannabe dummies. I much prefer being the one in charge of the spankings, and booked it up the tower. With the world ending in a few minutes, I skipped the foreplay and immediately knocked out the Sigil Keeper and stole his shit. The dungeon is done, the Great Sigil Stone is mine, and to at least make up for my evil deeds, I help a Daedra get unstuck. Didn't go well for it. Prepare for what should be a very hellish evening, that being not very prepared. I jumped right into the portal to paradise, and went to work on the elite Daedra. I can't pry the gauntlets off his body, so I guess I gotta play nice and let Anaxes out of his prison cell to torment his captors. With the job well done, I get the gauntlets that lets me further into the dungeon, and I am invited to a new experience. I am into some very niche things, and I think being trapped in a cave and nearly dunked into lava might be added to the list. Next to being ensnared by a giant spider in a cocoon as the young ones begin to feast on my innards. I might need to seek help on that one. With the battle against Mankar next, I have a slight change of plans that might help out with the battle. Eldamil is kind of a slacker, and I think bringing along some better backup should help. Who's a good little soul-consuming Daedra? Who's a good little soul-consuming Daedra? That's right, you are. Come on boy. You're a good boy. That's right, this way. Eldamil, you asshole! Okay. Mankar. Obviously this is going to be the toughest fight in the run under a pacifist context. I might have some Swedish blood, but I'm not into Stockholm Syndrome. I might get back to you all on that one actually. My plan was to let Eldamil damage Mankar, and I can be his pocket mercy. Yeah, Eldamil is a bloody weakling with next to no health, so that wasn't gonna work. Alright, plan B it is. Dancing around Mankar as the Flame Atronach tries to take pot shots. It doesn't go very well, but since Mankar isn't very bright, he ends up using all his magic and staff charges and decides to punch me in the face. Step in line, mate. There's probably 12,000 people who want to do that first. I lead him up the stairs where he falls to the ground below, taking out half of his health, and since I never damaged him, his AI doesn't think to heal. I do end up taking quite a beating, but eventually the moron is bitten twice, falls to his death, and nearly mine too, but the day is saved. Now comes the good old conclusion. Being arrested yet again for my awful ways, and when I came to, the Mythic Dawn and the King of Mistkarkan were waiting there to ambush me. I guess being chaotic evil does have its downsides. I get a bad seat at the coronation ceremony, and the demons are in the streets trying to break the world record for the largest BDSM session. Everyone is after everyone, and I get knocked down for some reason. The final mission is very quick. Escort Martin and pray he doesn't get pegged in the wrong hole. We meet up at the church to hook up. No, Martin didn't want to hook up with me, but rather a giant demon and transforms into a dragon. I am depressed, dejected, and lonely for yet another Valentine's Day, but at least I was able to successfully beat Oblivion Remastered with the Truncheon a submission. That was not a very fun run, but it was also interesting. The weapon is very much a joke weapon in the truest sense of the word. It is pretty funny knocking over enemies and watching them struggle to get back up, or just letting them fall to their deaths. But the terrain of Oblivion really isn't conducive to gravitational solutions. I wanted to at least change things up in this run and try to do more quests, because otherwise this would have just become a repeat of the Pacifist challenge. As for what's to come next, I'm going to be doing another longly requested challenge run that may or may not involve another protagonist from the funny Mushroom Land, so stay tuned to that. And before signing off for the night, a special thank you to all my patrons and YouTube members who have numerous not so pleasurable tools for wherever their night takes them. Links to them, along with my social media and Discord in the description. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to drop a like, subscribe for more masochism, and any other ways to torture myself, leave them down below. I think this outro text is a little too apt given the ongoing gag this video. Oh well, this has been Orpheolus, and I'll see you all in the next one.